Gracias, chicos.
Okay, nice recording. Can I open the webinar now?
Yes, yes, yes. We are
Okay.
late.
Let's start.
When do I appear? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar regarding the call for proposal for grants 2023 relating intellectual property awareness raising activities. Before we start, I would like to inform you that the information provided and the opinions expressed during this information session are only intended to complement the guidelines for applicants and will not be legally binding. We will start with a presentation of the structure of the program today. And the session will be structured in 4 parts. We will start with a general overview given by Claire Castel, including the background, the objectives and priorities, the strengths, the budget, and the estimated timetable of the call. We will continue the second part, the selection procedure, which includes the admissibility requirements, the eligibility, exclusion, and the selection criteria, and the award criteria. The third part will consist in the financial and contractual conditions and includes the legal commitments, the form of funding, the eligible costs and the budget, the calculation of the final grant amount and the steps, the reporting and the payment and other financial conditions, publicity, communication and dissemination, and data protection aspects. The last part will regard the submission procedure, the application form and the annexes, the submission, evaluation and notification, and the contact and information details. Before we jump into the program, I would like just to give you a few practical instructions. We encourage you to submit your questions either during the presentation or at the end. Please, in this sense, use the chat which you have in the bottom of the application, and we will address all your questions at the end of the presentation. And also you will have the replies available afterwards on the website, both to the questions which are able to reply during the webinar and also to the questions which we might not be able to reply during this session. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Claire Castel to start with the general overview of the grants. Claire, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Livia. Welcome to everybody to this information session. So it's my pleasure to introduce the 5th call for proposals. So we had already started back in 2015 with this type of grants. And for those who are familiar, we had already a call for proposal in 2015, 2017, 2019, and 2021. So they have been slightly evolving, but the principle remains more or less the same. So this call for 2023 is fully aligned with the strategic plan and awareness approach of the office and the observatory, focusing on consumers and especially younger ones, including children in academic environment or extracurricular activity, as well as small businesses. And this is linked to the activities we are developing as part of Ideas Powered for Creatives, Ideas Powered for Schools, like an education project, and Ideas Powered for Business. So that's a bit the context of the activities. And of course, since it's an awareness grant, the idea is indeed to increase knowledge of the value of IP as a tool to protect creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship, and also to raise the awareness of the damage caused by IP rights infringement, so counterfeiting and piracy. So of course, we want to engage priority audiences into regarding this issue in a different perspective, with a view to change their behavior and reduce their appeal for counterfeiting and piracy. We also want to raise awareness among SME about the benefits of creating, exploiting, and protecting IP rights as part of their business activities and strategies. And we want to help businesses to use IP, support them in enforcing their right, and engage small businesses in IP matters. So these are the general objectives and priorities of the call this year. We have 3 strands. So what we had in the past, for those who are familiar with this type of grant, we had strand A and strand B. So on one side, reaching children, youth, and teachers or future teachers through educational activities in academic and non-academic learnings. So basically, strand A covers educational actions, whether it is inside or outside the school, targeting children in primary, secondary, and also tertiary education, and also linking with some other extracurricular activity. And of course, targeting educational professionals, such as teachers or future teachers. That specific strand caters for an official involvement of institutions, typically Ministry of Education. Strand B covers, in a wider sense, reaching consumers, so basically campaigns and public relation activities, and especially in that case, specifically young consumers. So it covers raising awareness activities, campaigns targeting consumers, especially young consumers. And here, this specific call strand relates to cross-border action. So here we aim to have several member states involved, especially at least 3 member states. We are also having a strand reaching out to SMEs, and this is a new strand which will be developed in the next slides. And the scope here is awareness actions targeting small businesses. Here, we also want to have involvement of relevant partners for the dissemination and reach to these SMEs, and also to have something original and modern in terms of methodology and approaches to this action, especially using new technology and digital approach, which are the preferred approach. So here the budget in total is 2 billion euros. So we have increased significantly the budget for the total call, covering 1 million for strand A and B, so 400,000 for strand A, educational activities, and 600,000 for strand B, covering youth activities and campaigns. And the strand C, covering small businesses, is the budget is 1 million euros. So quite some opportunity to develop activities all over Europe. So as we mentioned, so what is new this year? So here, an element of continuity from 2021, where we have changed to a system based on a financing not linked to cost. So what we did in 2021 was to base the whole call for proposal based on performance and results. And this is what we will be continuing this year. So basically the financing we will be providing will be conditioned by the actions being implemented properly and fully, and with the required quality and on time. And this is what starts as a basis for the call in terms of the submission, but also in terms of assessment of the results. So that novelty we started back in 2021 will continue also this year. So it's a bit of a change for those who have been used to the usual grants and call for proposal based on cost. So that's quite a difference, and I would like to insist on that point because it's a conceptual difference. Here we will really focus on the results and the performance at the award level, but also at the final evaluation results. And the novelty also of this call relates to the third strand, strand C, where we aim to cover SMEs. So here, the objective is to reach out to European small businesses, encouraging and reinforcing behavioral change towards promoting the use of IP rights as a driver to ensure innovation and stimulate growth. So we are covering various types of activities. And the idea is to reach specific objectives, such as an improvement of IP awareness, knowledge, and skills among the different European small businesses, help them to learn how to successfully use IP to strengthen and grow their business, but also support European small businesses in enforcing their IP rights and the benefits to be gained from this, and also engage them in regarding IP matter as a specific relevant asset for their business. So different types of activities. So that strand covers 1 million euro. And here we are covering activities which are awareness raising. It could be social media or media. It can be audiovisual materials, publication, events, fair exhibitions. So all types of activities in line with the scope of the activities. The estimated timetable, so we are now on the 10th of May. The deadline for submission of application, and this is a very strict deadline, is 31st of May. So in 2 weeks' time, a bit less. And with a time cut at 1 o'clock Central European time. And then which will allow the evaluation committee to proceed in June with a view to already notify applicants, especially the ones who have been awarded in July up till August. And we aim to sign the grant agreements with the awarded beneficiaries in September 2023 in time to start activities and implement. So, so that's what I wanted to mention in terms of overview. And I would like now to give the floor to my colleague Jérôme Baumard from our finance department to cover the selection procedures. Thanks a lot.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So I will very briefly go through the selection procedure. It's based on the guidelines that you could access on the website for this procedure, for these grant procedures. So there are different levels to the selection of the proposals. We go from admissibility, then the second one will be eligibility, then afterward exclusion, then selection, and finally award criteria. So all these go in order. If someone fails at the admissibility level, the proposal will be rejected, and so on after for eligibility, exclusion, until the end. So as Claire explained before, the deadline is set for the 31st of May, but we really ask you, encourage you to not wait for the last minute to submit your offer, your proposal, because if all the applicants are connecting at the same time, if there are some technical problems or whatever last minute, please try to do it the day before or early in the morning, but don't wait for the last minute. Another little piece of information is that the system closes automatically at 1 o'clock. So if you start just 1 minute before 1 o'clock, at 1 o'clock it will close even if you didn't finish. So your proposal will not be accepted. So don't wait. Again, for the time Claire pointed out, it's 1 p.m. Central European time. So colleagues from other time zone applicants should be careful. That's one element. The other element is that you should use the e-form, which is provided for on the web page, and exclusively the e-form. Proposals submitted by email or paper will not be accepted. The last point concerns the language. So all EU languages are accepted. However, we would appreciate if proposals could be submitted in English. That would facilitate the work of the colleagues who will evaluate the proposals, because if we have too many languages, then we will waste some time translating and everything. So as much as possible, have the proposals in English. Now, the supporting documents, we understand that you will have to submit them in their original language. Whenever you have the possibility or the document is available in English, please attach as well the translation with the supporting document in your original language. Concerning the next steps, so eligibility, exclusion, and selection. So for applicants, it's rather straightforward. You should be, the applicant itself, the company should be registered in one of the EU member states for at least 2 years. Supporting documents will be asked. Concerning the personnel of the applicant, as long as they are registered or resident in the EU, they don't have to have an EU nationality. They could be American or whatever. If they are resident, officially resident in the EU, it's acceptable. Concerning the activities, so it's what Claire presented in the first part. So be sure to stick to the guidelines and to the type of activities we are asking for. And then finally, period-wise, the projects shouldn't last more than 12 months, more than a year. They could last less. If you foresee something less, it's acceptable as well. But 12 months is a maximum. Regarding the start date, we say it cannot start before, except in very justified cases. The only case I can think of is we are going to sign, hopefully in August or beginning of September. But if one of you has a project which is linked to the school year starting in September and we sign at the end of September, maybe your project could have been started a few days or few weeks before. But only this type of case, and only if it's requested before. I mean, we will see on a case-by-case basis. Otherwise, projects cannot start before the sign date. The next level is the exclusion. So for the moment, I mean, at that stage of a submission of proposal, it's rather simple. You need to sign a declaration. So if it's a mono-beneficiary on its behalf and behalf of its affiliated entities, so I think we'll touch that subject later, but affiliated entities would be a case I can think of would be the International Red Cross, for example, and one of their affiliates could be the Red Cross from France or the Red Cross from Portugal. This would be considered an affiliated entity, for example. When we are talking about multi-beneficiary, so it's a grouping of applicants. So it could be an NGO from Spain, which goes in consortium with a university from Germany, and they submit together a proposal. But whatever the case, we ask only one declaration. So it's either the coordinator in case of multi-beneficiary or the applicant in case of a single applicant. Slide. Okay, next step for us is the selection criteria. So there are 2 selection criteria that we will check. One concerns your financial capacity. So depending on the amount you are asking for, if you're asking for less than 60,000, then there is only the declaration of honor. You will see there is a box concerning the selection criteria, so you have to tick and fill it in, and that will be all. If it's above 60,000, it would be the declaration of honor plus a table, which is in section 5.1 of the Annex 1A, description of the project. So you have to fill it in. There are some ratios to be calculated. We will check that. If you are below the ratios that are there, you will need to give some explanation, any type of supporting document that you can attach with your proposal. Otherwise, if something is not clear, we will come back to you during the evaluation. Concerning the operational capacity as well, there are few elements concerning the period we'll be checking. So this capacity will be checked for a period during the last 5 years, or counting backwards from today, from the deadline for submission. And we are usually asking for 3 years of relevant experience cumulated. It shouldn't be continuous, but it would be accumulated. So of course, in the subjects that you are touching in your proposal, you can submit CVs of the key personnel. So there is no need to send 10 or 15 CVs. I mean, it's not the quantity, but more the quality. So really, the key people of the project will be happy to see their CV. Any type of activity report that you as an NGO or university or any type would have, please include that. And as well, at the end of the Annex 1A, there is a table in section 10 where you can put your previous experiences, projects that you covered in the past. So you will have to fill in the table there. And so now I'm giving back the floor again to Claire for the award criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Jérôme. So this is the part where we will look at your submission and assess it against all the others with the limited budget we are having. We encourage you to be very clear and very concise. We don't need to have hundreds of pages. Actually, we are looking for something quite concise with roughly 10 pages. So you should be able to convince the evaluation committee in 10 pages. The key points here are, on one side, to follow the narrative. So it's an awareness grant, and the idea is to have a roughly common message for all the projects. And the idea is to follow the narrative, of course, a line per strand. Beneficiaries or submissioners should also meet the specification of the relevant strand they are applying to. So here you would have to look at the different strands and align with specification of the different strands. And it has to comply with the objective and priorities of that specific strand you're applying to. So looking now at the different scores. So you would have to go on each of the strand, and the proposal would need to reach at least 70 points out of 100 overall, as per the sum of the minimum threshold indicated per criteria. So it's a double condition. You need to have at least the minimum threshold in each of the criteria, and all the different points should at least be 70 out of 100. So the idea is to really select the best proposals and make sure that the ones which are good value for money are awarded. So 3 sets of key criteria. On one side, the relevant and general interest. So here, of course, the project and proposal should be on scope. So it has to be relevant and cover the different activities set in the strand. The methodology and sustainability should be clear and assessed. And of course, because it is an awareness grant, dissemination and performance is key. Now, let's look a bit in the details. So if we take the first criteria, relevance and general interest. So here, the evaluation committee will assess several things. First, they will assess, and this is the core of the criteria, how the applicants and the project intends to respond to the call objective and apply the narrative in concrete terms. And I would like to stress in concrete terms. So projects or proposals which are a mere cut and paste of the narrative or a general confirmation of what we have put in the guidelines will not do. You would have to explain concretely how you intend to respond to the objectives and to apply the narrative, how this will be materializing concretely. So what you can bring. Of course, so that's a key point. It's 20 points out of 30. Then you would also have to explain how the project can be scalable, involving different member states and adds value. So what are the added value this project is bringing and why it should be chosen? So you would have to argue and this is for 5 points. And the last 5 points are related to cooperation with relevant partners or endorsement of entities to boost impact. It's an awareness grant. So we are after results and performance. You would have to work with partners or get the support of other entities so that the proposal has really a chance to bring a boosted impact. So, and this is what has to be explained. All in all, the points here need to be at least 20 out of 30. So that will be the threshold for that criteria. Going into the second criteria, here we have methodology and sustainability. So, so here as well on one side, we have tools and methods should be realistic, appropriate, and consistent. So not everything we do, and you would have to explain why you are choosing that specific tool or method, and how likely it is that you are able to implement it. So it has to be pretty precise in terms of feasibility and consistency to respond to the activities you're proposing. It has to be specific, creative, coherent, and also, if possible, bring innovative elements in line with current digital technologies. So that's a big part of the criteria. We need also to see a comprehensive calendar of activities with a precise estimation of dates. Of course, estimation of dates. We know that things can happen during the lifetime of a project or during an implementation. And of course, the estimation sometimes might need to change or might need to be adapted. And this is where comes in play the idea of coherent risk assessment with possible deviation that may arise during the project implementation together with potential solutions. So we want to see that beneficiaries and people who are submitting cater for possible deviation, risks, and how they will implement this. Because in any case, it happens. And the last part of the criteria relates to the sustainability of the project after the grants. Of course, we are aware it's a grant for 1 year, but we want also to see that the money we are investing has some chance to be continuing the project one way or another after the lifetime of the grant. And we want also to see adequate approaches to ensure gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and adequate environmentally respectful strategies. So that's for the criteria number 2. And then the last criteria is also quite important, is relating to dissemination and performance. So here we want to see how you intend to disseminate the project, and we want to see a concrete plan to explain how the reach you are planning will be achieved concretely. And that would link also to credible quality measurements and also realistic quantitative and qualitative KPIs to measure the results. And the last part of the criteria relates to something relatively objective, because you will get points according to what you are promising or what you are foreseeing. And here we have a breakdown. So if you promise to reach 100 people or more, per euro invested, you will get the maximum point. And then between 80 and 100, 6 points, between 60 and 80, 4 points, between 50 and 62 points, and below 50, 0 points. So here it's a bit of a tricky assessment on your side to, of course, foresee results and performance, but on the other side, to be realistic so that you don't overpromise and then you cannot achieve, because of course everything will be assessed, and if you have a discrepancy between what has been planned and what has been achieved, that could link to a financial penalty. So it's a bit of a clear and precise assessment on your side when you submit your project to assess what would be realistically possible for you to achieve, and so that you have a chance to actually reach that result. And so here, as I mentioned, the estimation needs to be provided at the time of when you submit the project, and they will also be checked against the achievement during, because there will be regular monitoring on our side, but also after the implementation activity. And then that will be part of the evaluation as established in the award criteria. And of course, the KPIs and the measurements will differ depending on the channel used. So here, maybe we can spend a bit of time here on this quantitative assessment. So here we want roughly to measure the number of people which will be reached with your project, depending on the channel category and the different channels. So it could be events, whether presential or online. It can be mailing, leaflet campaigns. It can be digital communication with online platform, website, videos, tools, social media, and traditional media. So, and of course, we will measure differently, but roughly we aggregate the different elements and get a number of people reached across the project. And we measure them with different elements. On your slide, on this slide, you see how we measure them. For example, for an event, we measure the number of participants attending the event. Same for online, same for the mailing. For social media, we measure number of impressions, we measure, in the case of videos, number of views. Traditional media, we have reach and total reach. And for website, we have total number of visits. So so these are for the quantitative. For qualitative, this is the same. We measure also the quality. It's not good enough to have the activities, the narrative appear everywhere, but it also to be considered of a quality, so that there is a balance in the project. And here also we look at events, online platforms, social media, traditional media. And things are measured differently. So percentage of satisfaction with the subject in the participants, engagement rate in the case of social media, the typical reach to tier 1 media, so mainstream media and high quality media in traditional media, and non-bounce rate in the case of digital communication and websites. So, of course, all this would be assessed at the end of the project, and we will check compliance with the announced KPIs at the end of the project. So, and here I would like to stress that the amount of the final grant may be reduced proportionally to the result achieved. So if you are over-promising, maybe you get a chance to be selected. But if you are not delivering on results, then you will be penalized. So there is a bit of a balance to do and try to have things as precise as possible to increase the chance to perform and get the final amount, the final grant amount paid. So, so voila. With that, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Jérôme for the financial and contractual conditions.
Okay, hello again. Let's see a little bit about the legal commitments, the forms and funding, and all the other aspects of the grant agreements we will be signing with the recommended proposals. So first things first, the signature of the grant agreement. So there is something new this year, is that finally we are using a qualified electronic signature. So whenever possible this year, if you, the beneficiaries of the grant, if you do have an electronic signature, qualified one, we will try to sign it this way. But in any case, I mean, the recommended beneficiaries will be informed at the time of signature. We will ask, we will inform them on the process. But again, that's something new which will hopefully help everybody to save some time. Otherwise, regarding the structure, it's still the same. There are two types of models of grant agreements, but they are very, very similar, mono-beneficiary and multi-beneficiary. In the multi-beneficiary, we will see the different beneficiaries, not only the coordinator, the main one. If it's done on paper, there will be two copies that will first be sent to the beneficiary or the coordinator to sign. Both copies will be returned to us, we will sign, and we will return the countersigned copy to the beneficiary. Another little point, if you submit a proposal for this call, it means you accept using the general conditions of the grant agreement. So please have a look, because we cannot accept a beneficiary or someone saying, yes, we're happy to work with you, but we have to use our conditions which differ on that and that point. This is unfortunately not possible. Next slide. Okay, so we explained a little bit in the previous part. So like in 2021, we will be using financing not linked to the cost. So we're not asking for any detailed budget breakdown. We just want one sum, the total amount of the project and I mean, what we'll be financing. And then payments will be, except for the advance payment, which comes with the signature of the grant agreement, but the interim and final payments will be based on reports you will be submitting with a request for payments. And then the colleagues will analyze these reports and any figures you will be giving to see if it matches what was in the proposal. And in this way, it will liberate a payment or not. At the end, of course, we'll do a summary of all what you did. And if everything matches what you said or promised you will be doing and all the KPIs and everything, you will be paid in full. Otherwise, reductions are possible. But for that, please refer to the Annex 3 on the performance estimation, which is a very important document for you. Again. So for the ones who participated in the older call for proposal in 2015, 17, and 19, where we had a detailed budget, we were checking the eligibility of cost, meaning are these costs acceptable, or were there some trips or something that has nothing to do with the project? Here we are not checking, because here we just pay if you reach the goals and objectives you said you would reach. However, we encourage you to keep proofs, evidence, any supporting documents you may have linked to the expenses you had. We will not, again, ask for them, but in case of checks, controls, or audits within the next 5 years, we would be, or the European Court of Auditors or anyone checking would be entitled to ask for supporting documents. So we don't need them, but they might be verified in the future. So be careful and have some archiving thing to keep track of your expenses. Budget-wise, of course, there is no way we can exceed the available budget. So if you made a proposal saying you ask 80,000, we agreed to that. You cannot come in the end and say, we had some extra expenses and we need 90,000. This is, again, unfortunately not possible. Another limitation you have to see in the guidelines are the maximum amounts. So they differ depending on the strand. So be careful, depending on the strand you're applying for. The minimums and maximums are different. So be careful. Last thing, for the applicants will be using another currency than euro. the budget, I mean, your proposal is in euro, but you should base yourself on the exchange rate, which is published by the Commission. So in this case, the call for proposal was published in April, so you should use the rate for the month of April 2023 for the submission. Okay, we said earlier, the payments, there are 3 of them foreseen. A pre-financing, it comes with the signature of a grant agreement. It's automatic, there is no particular request. Then there is an interim payment after 6 months. So we will pay maximum 30%. You will have to submit an interim report. So the template of the report will be put on the web page of the call for proposal later on. It's not there yet. And then there will be a very similar report, which is more for the qualitative result, quantitative result for the end of the project. So within 1 year, within 12 months, where you will have as well to submit a request for final payment. And this might take a bit of time because the colleagues will need to check everything, the figures, what you committed to do in your proposal, what you achieve, the KPI, and so on and so on. Some other elements, so usually for grants, there are some principles. There is no retroactivity, so I touched the subject a little bit earlier on. I said we cannot finance something that started in the past. There are very, very exceptional cases, but it will be discussed on a case by case if it happens, but normally it's a no. Non-cumulative awards, which means that if your project is already co-financed by another EU institution, money coming from another agency, even if it's the EU budget, you cannot be paid twice by the EU budget for doing something which is the same. Implementation contract subcontracting, we will ask for information about subcontracting. So we understand that you will not do everything yourself. You might be subcontracting a company to print some leaflets or to print some banners or whatever. So this is called subcontracting. In the reports, we will ask for information about that. And the last element that I mentioned earlier are checks and audits. So this refers to the general conditions of the grant agreement. So either, as I said, the office or the court, European Court of Auditor, or any other body that we mandate may be checking your account. So keep track of everything. We will not ask for them for this project, but we might request them up to 5 years after the last payment. Another important point, I think we sometimes had problem in the past. Publicity is very important when you are using EU budget, because if you don't do it, or if you don't do it properly according to the guidelines, this might entail a reduction of the grant agreement. So on the web page of the call for proposal, there are guidelines published, there are models of emblems and so on to be used. So on web pages, on publications, on posters, banners, whatever. For the ones who participated 2 years ago and in the past, please note that this year, they're a bit different. There are new guidelines and new models of emblems. So please have a look. And when you do the implementation, be sure to use them. We will do as well publicity. So the projects that will be awarded, we will publish a summary of the project with the amount, the name and address of the beneficiary. So that will be on our website. And finally, so you as beneficiary will be owner of the outcome of the result of a project. It belongs to you. But as we want to make good use of it and disseminate, replicate as much as possible, you allow the office to use these results and to continue replicate or disseminate them in the future. So one last element, we encourage you to go on the main page of the grant agreements, on the grants, sorry. There is a data protection clause regulation. There is a link and a PDF attached. Please have a look. This might be important. I'm thinking, but Claire will jump in, or maybe we'll discuss it in the Q&A. We had some questions in the past, like a beneficiary is organizing a meeting with some children or pupils, and they register them on a piece of paper with their names or age, ID, card number, whatever. Do they have to give us this type of details, or are these protected by data protection? So have a look, because we're asking for information, but not, I mean, up to a certain level. I mean, we won't prove that you did what you said you did, but we don't need copies of the ID cards of pupils or students who participated to an event, for example. But that, you can discuss it during the implementation. We can clarify. So we will need information, but only up to a certain level. So regarding the legal aspects, we are done. So now just to close on that before the Q&A session, the submission part. So again, it's all explained, and if you are all here during this webinar, it means you went on the web page and you saw everything. So everything is under the web page. One element, just want to mention it now. We had a question yesterday, and I think I saw in the Q&A now in the chat for the webinar. Someone, maybe the same person, maybe not, was wondering about the 3 Excel tables that are embedded in the Annex 1A description of the project form. Someone or some of you had problem to open them, or didn't manage, or it didn't work. So we will have them put directly under the list of annexes on the web page. So it will be easier for you to access them. For us, it worked. For some others, it worked. For some others, it didn't. So the easiest thing is to put them there. So they will be on the Annex 1. So I don't know if we put them just after Annex 1A or at the bottom, but the 3 Excel, one for each strand, will be put there. So all the annexes are there. They are very similar to the previous years. Nothing new. The link for the e-form. How to use the e-form, there is a guide, which is there, guideline. If you have any questions, you write, you send an email to grants@euipo-europa.eu, and we will answer to you as soon as possible. So for the submission, the 2 main elements before filling in the documents are to read the guidelines and the famous Annex 3 on the performance indicators that will allow you to fill in your application form. So again, for the ones who participated in 2021, this time we simplified the e-form. So it should take less time, and it should be easier to manage it online. So we will see how it goes, but we hope it should be better. In terms of the evaluation process, so I explained that in my previous intervention. So there will be different levels, as I said: admissibility, eligibility, exclusion, selection, and award. Then we'll make a list of the projects that are proposed to be awarded. Of course, we'll have to take into consideration the budget available per strand. It's always possible to reallocate funds between one strand to another. The possibility exists. If it makes sense to fit another project in, let's use the funds available. Usually, we always try to have a reserve list, so 1 or 2 projects per strand that are extra, in case one of the projects which is proposed for awards falls out, or the beneficiary changes his mind or has some difficulty and cannot implement or can't start the implementation, then we would come to this project on the reserve list. Now, of course, when we notify you that you are awarded a grant, it doesn't mean that you will be getting a project in 25 or 27. This is absolutely not linked. The next stage, last stage. So when we have our list, we know who will be awarded. Here, the authorizing officer of the office will sign this decision. Then we'll inform everybody at the same time, so the successful applicants and the unsuccessful ones. So you will all receive a letter. If you are not successful, you will be given the reasons why you were not successful. We will explain as much as we can in detail. And as I said earlier on publicity, after that, at the end of the process, when everything is signed, we will publish a short summary of your projects with the budget and the name of the beneficiaries that will be put on the website of the office. So that's it. If you need further information, okay, frequently asked questions. So these are on the web page. The question and answers. We only got one, I think, so far. Now there is this information session, and now we're going to start with the Q&A session. We can see already there are questions. And if something is not in the Q&A or was not treated now, feel free up to the 31st to send an email to grants@euipo.europa.eu. And I think that's it from our side. And if my colleague Livia can take over for opening the floor for the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jérôme and Claire, for this complete presentation. We have a series of questions, which I would like to try to group them somehow. I will start with the first one from Nicola from Italy. He has several questions. And first question, does public university qualify as public body? And second, it is possible to spend funding for full-time personnel employed by the university. I would like to start with this, and I will continue with the other two questions. Maybe Claire?
I think it's more for me, no?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, if you want to jump in, Claire, jump in. So first question, does public university qualify as public body? Normally, yes, it depends on the status of the university, but if I registered with the Ministry of Education in Italy and they are public, for me, it's a public body, so they would be exempted, yeah, for some of the elements that are mentioned in the guidelines in terms of a supporting document. Is it possible to spend funding for full-time personnel employed by the university? Here, I would say no, because they cannot be funded twice. They cannot be paid already by the state, the Italian state in this case, and paid by the project. Now, if they take officially some time off from the university to work on the project, they take a year off or a semester off. In this case, yes, but we will ask supporting document or evidence of that. Was there a third question, Livia?
Yes, there are another three questions actually by Nicola. The next one, would it be possible to start the project later than September 2023, for example, in January 2024? I think Claire was talking about timing.
Yeah, for me, procedure-wise, it's fine. Now, in terms of project.
Yeah, the question here is that it depends of the duration of the project. If it's 6 months and it finishes more or less at the same time as the others, we will sign the grant in September for the awarded. So if it starts a bit later, that it depends of the project. So in principle, I don't see why not.
Okay. Thank you, Claire. Which was the success rate of the past call? They would like to know as well.
The one from 2021, I think it was 1 project out of 3. So 30%.
Okay. I will finalize the question of Nicola because he had several. And why does the target of strand B is defined as consumer? Does this mean that awareness raising activity should focus on buyers rather than creatives and innovators?
Well, the idea is to focus on most people. So people who are actually having a behavior which is not respecting IP. So people who are buying fakes or people who are accessing digital content from illegal sources. And we aim to change their behavior through awareness. So we would focus more on let's say, citizens meaning the one who are interested in creative digital content, accessing them in a good way or in an illegal way, and citizens who are buying or using products which are either original or fakes. So yes, indeed, that's the main target: people, citizens.
Thank you, Claire. I'm going, and thank you, Nicola, for all your questions. I'm going to continue with another one from Diletta. They are intending to submit a proposal for Strand B. And they say that they read in the award criteria that award criterion 1 gives 5 points to the applicant that held the endorsement of national public entities like ministries or similar. Does this apply to Strand B as well, or is it specific to Strand A, and it is the only strand that mentions ministries?
Yes, indeed, Strand A, and this is in the specifications of the call, covers official involvement of institutions such as Ministry of Education and or other relevant policymakers, stakeholders, to approve the program and disseminate it. And this is mainly for educational activities. So here, of course, to enter into schools, you need to have some kind of official involvement of ministries. That's for Strand A. For Strand B, we have also involvement of relevant leverage partners for dissemination. So that's also would be something important in terms of partnerships. But when we talk about official involvement of institutions and ministries, this is Strand A.
Thank you. I have another question from Federico regarding advertising on, it's a clarification regarding advertising on podcast and music platform. Is it considered traditional media, social media, or online platforms when you advertise on podcasts and music platforms?
Well, it's always a choice. I mean, sometimes the lines are a bit blurred. So traditional media, definitely not, because normally this is press. So TV, radio, online, newspapers. So it can be either social media or it can be digital, depending on where you want to put it. At the end of the day, the figure of the KPIs is number of people as well. So it's up to you whether you think it fits best.
We have another question regarding Strand C. A business association can be considered eligible if it has experience in organizing training events, even if not in the field of IP.
So here, I think we need to give the question to our colleague from the other department, Alessandro.
Alessandro.
Answer that question.
Good afternoon, Claire. Yes, definitely this is what we're looking for. Business association, development agencies, clusters. Basically, the Strand C is addressed to those entities who are in touch on daily basis with small and medium-sized enterprises. So the answer is yes, we are looking for this type of organization to promote IP awareness campaign and communication activities.
I hope this is clear. Claire, I have another question for you in concrete regarding the selection criteria, where you mentioned the relation between the points and the amount of money or quantity.
The award criteria.
Yes.
Yeah, the correlation between reach and influence.
Exactly.
I think it's a very important point. So here we wanted to be as objective as possible. So as you've seen, we are after results and performance. So we have put this criteria, which is reach per euro, so or cost per contact, if you want to say that. And this is, by the way, what corporate companies are also assessing in terms of performance of campaigns and activities. So we want to make the most with the amount of money we are giving you. So this is exactly that figure. So how many people can you reach with the amount of money we're giving you? And the more people you can reach, the more points you get, because this is an indication of performance. So we are after the results.
Okay, I hope, Antonio, that clarified your question. Sarah has 3 questions as well, and would like to know if can submit more than one project, and if there are any possible considerations or problems regarding that. And as for the budget, we would like to know only the total amount for the entire project, or the amount needed for each activity? Jerome would like to answer.
Yeah. Is it possible to submit more than one proposal? Yes, there are conditions. I mean, there are three strands, so you can submit one proposal per strand. That's totally acceptable, but you cannot submit more than one proposal per strand. The only case where it could be understood is that you made a mistake with your first submission for a strand. You realized that some documents were missing, or there was a big mistake. But in this case, in parallel, you should send an email to the grants at EUIPO Europa EU mailbox saying, okay, we submitted on the 25th of May a proposal titled, submitting a new one today, 30th of May, with the same title. That would be acceptable, in which case we will not touch or open the first one, but only the second one. So in case of mistake or change in your organization, whatever, you can resubmit. You can submit in different strands, but in principle, it's only one per strand. As for the budget, you want to know only the total amount? Yes, only the total amount. We don't want any detail at all. Just one figure in your budget proposal. So contrary, yes, to 2019 and before. And EUIPO will finance the whole project and not just a percentage. Yes, we do not look at co-financing this time, because with financing not linked to the cost, it's not possible and doesn't make sense. So yes, you ask for one amount, 80,000, and we will finance 80,000, provided that you fill in your part of the contract, reaching your objectives. Thanks.
Further questions more in detail. They would like to know how the KPIs will be evaluated and if it's going to be the same mathematical formula used in the call of 2021.
Well, this has changed. We have simplified the calculation of the assessment and the KPIs. It was far too complicated. So we had the system of weighted, and it proved very complex for beneficiaries, also very complex for us. And it did not really bring an added value. So we learned our lesson. And for this call 2023, we have simplified the KPI. So we have quantity, we have quality, and then we get the figures, and it complies with what you have promised or not.
Thank you, Claire. We have another question. If the single applicant is a public authority, how can the awarded money be spent for a private agency for the production of a video?
I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. It's all this subcontracting thing. As I said, we understand that a candidate cannot do everything or doesn't have expertise or capacity to do everything. So some activities, not the core ones, of course, but some activities can be subcontracted. So a university, a public one, can indeed subcontract the creation of a web page or some printing or whatever type of activities like that. So even for producing a video, I mean, the university should have the idea, should write the script, should do all the creative part, the contacts, but they can of course subcontract and find a company who is able to do the video itself.
Okay, we have actually two questions on the same aspect regarding the 3 countries' participation, the involvement of 3 countries. One of the question is the involvement of 3 countries means having 2 partners from other countries in the project, or just dissemination of the material in the other countries. And the second question is regarding the budget and the involvement of the 3 countries. So the total budget is for 1 country or for all 3 of them? If I'm able to do the project in 1 country and not the other 2, what will happen?
I'm checking this thing. I think it's the dissemination in different countries. We might come to that to clarify this, because I want to see exactly the wording and the guidelines.
We can answer maybe after that on the website.
Okay.
Maybe we can continue, and if Claire finds the answer, she...
Yes, we have another question on the also on the participation of countries. So
it's page 6 of the guidelines for Strand B. Activity must be cross-border and involve several EU member states, in brackets, to be implemented in at least 3. So if you can implement in 3 countries at least without involvement of local partners, that's your decision, that's your proposal. But it has to be implemented.
Okay, so is the minimum of 3 years experience in similar projects in the last 5 years a necessary requirement or a preference criteria by selecting a proposal?
Mandatory.
It's mandatory. Should similar previous projects, for example, based on school dissemination, involve the same topics or not necessary? I don't.
Claire.
Sorry, I'm looking at the chat, and I want to add, there was again this question about the 3 countries, whether the total budget is for 1 country or for all 3. It's for all 3. So it's for the project. So if you have projects with 3 countries or 5 or 8, it's the same budget.
Okay, and in continuation to the same aspect, is the project I want to make is for 1 country. Is that a problem? And also if eventually the country I'm applying for cannot do the project, but a second country from the ones I had already mentioned could do it with less budget. Is that the problem? I don't know if did you understand the question?
Yeah, it's a part of the specification. So for Strand B, activity must be cross-border. So if they are not cross-border, then the project is not eligible.
I don't see more questions on this aspect, so I hope this remained clear. I think we have managed to cover all the questions.
There was a question regarding benchmark on social media.
Yes, is there benchmarks for the SMEs reach out? So maybe.
Well, not really, because it depends on the project. So it's a whole balance. A project is a balance of different channels and different activity. So if you have only a small part of the project who is through social media, then the reach will be aligned with that project. If the whole project is only about social media and involvement of influencers, for example, then the figure is high because the project is only about that. So we don't really have benchmark, it depends on the project. But maybe one thing here we can say, And I think it's maybe worthwhile for those of you who are considering working with influencers for social media. It's some of them, they have high number of reach. So if you partner with influencers, they will promise a lot of reach. So the figure could be potentially quite high, but they also have issues regarding visibility. So for some of them, they might be not too happy to put the branding of the EUIPO or show that the content has been somehow not sponsored, but endorsed, or I don't know what. So this is something you have to check carefully, whether if you promise the reach of an influencer who has millions, that will materialize. Because if you're reaching the millions, but they don't put the visibility, then it's an issue.
Related with that slightly is the aspect regarding implemented in at least 3 countries. What if the outcome are to be reached on social media online? Will this be considered as cross-border and therefore in 3 countries?
It depends. It depends of the social media. Sometimes you can check the countries. Sometimes you cannot. So if we cannot, depending on the measurement tool, sometimes we aggregate. And this is a bit in the reporting that you will need to assess. So for example, you have 3 countries. Country A is doing a lot with social media. You cannot really distinguish, so you can attribute the total figure to country A. But then country B is doing a lot in online, and country C is doing a lot with media. So all in all, it is implemented in the 3, but not with the same channel. So you have to play a bit with what gives the best picture of your results.
We come back to stand B. It is possible to submit the second phase of a project that has already won the grant in the past?
In principle, yes. You will have to be pretty precise on what is the new element and the follow-up. So we are not going to award again the same project or pay for the same things. So here we have to see the novelty and the added value. And of course, the criteria would continue to apply depending on the strand.
Okay.
Sorry, just to add 2 little things. Someone mentioned in the Q&A asking if we will be sending the presentation. We'll not be sending it, but a PDF version of the PowerPoint will be put on the website, so most likely tomorrow. So the slides that they could see online will be made available. And I mentioned as well the 3 little Excel tables that are embedded in Annex 1A. They should be on the website either later this afternoon or tomorrow morning, latest.
If any of the colleagues would like to add something, I don't know if Alessandro or someone else, Claire or Jerome, would like to add something. I think we have covered the questions in the chat.
Have we covered the question regarding the minimum of 3 years experience in similar projects in the last 2 years?
I have mentioned it. Maybe you would like to add. So I will read it again for the ones who didn't hear the question. Is the minimum of 3 years experience in similar projects in the last 5 years a necessary requirement or a preference criteria for selecting the proposal? Should similar projects, for example, based on school dissemination, involve the same topics or not necessary?
Okay, I can give it a shot, and then Jérôme, correct me if you want to add.
Well, I think we said no, but it's a must. Huh?
It's a must, yes.
Yeah. After the other part, I mean.
Yeah, Jérôme mentioned that it's mandatory.
Yes, it's basically it's an eligibility criterion. Yeah. And should similar projects be on school dissemination involve the same topic? So IP, not necessarily. It can be on other things, but of course IP is an advantageous, but it can be on other topics.
Just one general comment from my side. I think we mentioned it. I mean, do not hesitate to contact us. You have the mailbox for the grants. If you have any doubt or questions, send us a mail. It's always better than going forward with something, submitting. You spend time and energy, and maybe something was wrong or unclear or whatever. So it's always better to send us an email. We, as long as we can, we'll be happy to explain and clarify whatever needs to be, and then put the answer on the website. So check the website regularly and do not hesitate to contact us. And well, all the best for preparing your proposals.
Thank you very much, Jerome. You mentioned already all the practical information. So where you find this presentation, also the documents which will be added on the website. We reached, and I think we covered all the questions. We still have some time if anybody has a question, but from my side, I think we have reached the end of this webinar. I would like to thank you for the interest, and good luck with the applications. Thank you very much.